to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. South Africa and Nigeria have reaffirmed their commitment to strengthening bilateral cooperation on migration, governance and regional security following high-level diplomatic talks aimed at easing tensions and deepening relations. President Cyril Ramaphosa, Special Envoy to Nigeria, and Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola, described the discussions as candid, constructive and forward-looking, with a focus on rebuilding mutual trust and enhancing cooperation. The engagements come as migration and immigration remain key issues across Africa, prompting leaders to pursue coordinated approaches to cross-border movement. And for more on this, we are joined on the line by Tshepo Matseba, the Managing Director at Reputation First Group, a strategic communication and reputation management consultancy. Tshepo, good afternoon and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity.
Now, Tshepo, South Africa has dispatched special envoys to both Nigeria and Ghana. What message does this send about Pretoria's diplomatic priorities in West Africa? And just also going back to the family meeting where President Ramaphosa did mention that there would be envoys sent through across the world.
Yeah, thank you. I think President Ramaphosa has been consistent around how he handles and how South Africa should handle the issue of illegal migration and migration as a pattern in general. So when you reflect on his State of the Nation address earlier this year, he spoke about the key migration being a key challenge, illegal immigration being a key challenge. And he said South Africa would actually deploy 10,000 or hire 10,000 inspectors, labor inspectors, so that they can deal with illegal immigration at the workplace or business level. And I think that process is going underway. I think the reason why and the benefit of Pretoria sending Envoy to Ghana and Nigeria is to importantly state through the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola, to state South Africa's unequivocal position that there is a migration problem in South Africa, illegal immigration challenge in South Africa. But that said, that South Africa embraces the principle of the rule of law, that vigilantism is not our policy as a country, that xenophobia as a label and action, as the world may perceive South Africa in that manner, that is not government policy. And I think that shows a degree of seriousness that he takes as a country to show the Western African counterparts that we can't solve the challenges that we are facing through the media or through social media or through negative verbal exchanges, but rather that through diplomatic ties and collaboration and cooperation, those we are likely as a country and as a continent to achieve a bit more and go further than the type of tension that we've experienced in recent times.
How important is envoy diplomacy in rebuilding confidence between African states?
Yeah, I mean, when you send an envoy, it shows that it goes on both sides, because you send an envoy, you identify the right level of seniority, and you say that this delegation is going to see the leadership of a certain country. When you send an envoy, you show that you respect your counterpart as a mutually equal partner, and that engagement and collaboration and conversation is the approach rather than hostility. And so that already tells you that I'm coming with open arms and I'm saying let's have a conversation and let's have a chat. But on the other side, when a country like Nigeria or Ghana receives an envoy from South Africa, how they receive and the level of seniority, the level of welcoming, the tone of the conversation, the tone of messaging in that you see, official messaging from the country, is very important, because it actually sets the tone and the bar about whether we are having a constructive engagement or whether we're having an argument. And I think that when you look at Ghana, they have open arms. The sentiment, at least, is that this was received constructively, and the president of Ghana engaged at that level, and that he has seen it as an opportunity to express his frustration about what is perceived to be targeted attacks on Ghanaians and African nationals in general in South Africa. And I think that gave him the opportunity to hear firsthand from the South African government official position, official policy of the government of South Africa from the envoy. And that's therefore the value of having an envoy, is that you don't hear speculation, but you actually get to speak to people who are in the room, people who sit next to the president of the country, people who sit in the cabinet, and who are actually at the top of South Africa's political position on this and various other issues, because over and above the debate about migration and illegal immigration, there is a reality of trade and the free African continental area, and the friendship between South Africa and Ghana, and the friendship between South Africa and as with the rest of the continent of the 54 or so member states of the African Union.
Now, looking at Nigeria and South Africa being Africa's two largest economies, what risks does a strained relationship pose for continental integration and economic cooperation?
Yeah, look, I mean, no one wants to see or celebrate, tension between South Africa and Nigeria, or South Africa or any other country. But Nigeria is an important trading partner to South Africa. We collaborate with Nigeria on different levels, and both economies of South Africa and Nigeria contribute meaningfully to the African continent. I would imagine that Nigeria also appreciates that South Africa brings significant levels of investment into Nigeria. When you look at the ICT sector in that country, and what South Africa contributes in that sense through entities such as MTN. So there's value in having a much more mature diplomatic conversation. What we usually see at the Pan-African Parliament, where Africans throw chairs at each other, fist fights, that needs to be thrown out of the box, so that the engagement is more constructive. And so the approach and the tone always has to be measured. You may want to reference what President Thabo Mbeki, people used to reference him as being akin to something that he was labeled as quiet diplomacy. But in this instance, I think the leaders of both countries need to recognize, and they do recognize this value, that there is value in conversations. And I think South Africa, when you look at it carefully, when you look at the outcome of the discussions in Nigeria, the outcomes include the fact that Nigeria has got a serious challenge of citizens who are in South Africa, who are not necessarily here for good purposes and good reasons, who are here committing a serious crime, and that crime affects both Nigeria's image and South Africa's reputation locally and internationally.
Well, Tshepo, I wish we had more time, but we have to leave it there. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you so much indeed.
That was Tshepo Matseba, the Managing Director at Reputation First Group, a strategic communication and reputation management consultancy, joining us on the line. Our news headlines up next.